Bruins Beat is brought to you by Prizepicks.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat, presented by Prizepicks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 back when you play just $5. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That's Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. Great. I'm doing great. I'm doing so great.
Great.
It is great. That's right. Tony the Tiger. I think that would be awesome. Take a little zest off Tony. But we're recording this at the end. We're recording this June 13th. We are pre-recording because I'm going to be away next week. So
Look at
while
you.
you're hearing this, I will be in, I think, Hilton Head. We're going to Hilton Head, South Carolina, and Savannah, Georgia. So we're doing both those. You highly recommended them, right?
Yeah, I've been to Savannah. Good cooking. I mean, you're gonna have to hit the gym when you get back, but man, it is. They know how to put a lot of butter and a lot of stuff down there. I mean, it's very, very good. So
Sounds good.
I can't hate on it. It's kind of like Charleston. Both those places, good to go for a couple days, and you come back just a little bit heavier, but it's well worth it. Yeah,
I'm not stepping on the scale for like a week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
play a couple hockey games between now and then, but I figure now is a great time to do a mock draft because we care about this now. We used to around here never care about the draft. Even last year when they had the 23rd pick, it was like, we'll see who it is, whatever, let's focus on free agency and everything. But the draft is the biggest thing going around here now. And you got, the Athletics putting out a ton of mock drafts, Flow Hockey, Daily Face Off, everybody's doing them. We haven't done one yet. And we're going to do the top 10 picks. And we're going to roll through them as they are now. I'm assuming they don't change by the time this comes out. They shouldn't. I would be shocked if they did. Usually it's more so right around the draft, and that's still a couple weeks away. But yeah, top 10 picks. We're going to roll through. We're going to make our own picks for each team. This is sort of based on, I think it's a mix of what we think those teams should do, what we think might actually happen, sort of a nice cosmic gumbo, so to speak.
That's my quote.
That's my quote of all those things into one. So Islanders have the first pick. I'll go first.
Yes.
And we'll alternate. I love the idea of the Islanders taking the Long Island kid in James Hagens. It's a fun idea. I can get behind it, but I don't think it's the right move, and I don't think it happens. I think it's Matthew Schaefer goes number 1 to the Islanders. I just think he's too nasty of a defenseman. That's a number, that's projecting a top pair franchise defenseman right there. And even though the Islanders kind of need everything, and I think teams behind the Islanders need Schaefer more, I think the Isles hold on and take Schaefer at 1. Now, what's your number 1 pick?
Yeah, I agree with them taking Schaefer. I think he's just the best player available, even if it's not maybe the most pressing need. There's still a lot to like about what Schaefer projects as, you've seen the comparisons to like Miro Heiskanen. If he can be a player like that, you've got a foundational piece on your blue line for the next 10 plus years. So I agree with you, Evan. I think it'd be really interesting if they went off the board with a guy like James Hagens, a local angle. Or, Michael Misa, who I think has put himself right in the contention with Schaefer. I don't think the gap is as far as maybe we initially thought it was going to be, where it felt like a few months ago, it was like Schaefer is like the lock. And I think Misa, just how good he's been this past year, he's in the running. But I think the Islanders go with Schaefer. If something does go awry there, and it is like Hagens goes off the board, makes things very interesting for the Bruins in terms of if, let's say a guy like Misa was to drop to like 3 or something like that. But I just can't see the Islanders, who again get ass backwards into the number 1 pick. Good.
Literally ass backwards.
Yeah.
Bumping it back.
I think Schaefer is just the best player available there, and you got to take a guy like that if he's up for grabs.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's interesting because this draft, we've said all along, this top 10, top 15 is very volatile. I mean, it could go in any number of directions, and we'll kind of get to that with some of these picks coming up. And that makes it such an interesting draft to sort of project. We sometimes skip over the fact that Schaefer seems like the number 1 pick. sort of consensus, but not like overwhelmingly the number one pick. Like I don't think it's insane to think maybe they go Misa or maybe
Yeah.
they jump, they do Hagens or something, but I think it's going to be Schaefer. Why don't you kick us off at number 2 with the San Jose Sharks?
Yeah. Again, they're a team that it would make so much sense if Schaefer was there. Like, and you wonder if like San Jose would want to like trade up or, do something. Cause I think like the one thing that they desperately need, they've got Celebrini, they've got Smith, they've got Eklund, they've got so much talent up front that like what they desperately do need is a top pairing D for the long haul. So Schaefer makes so much sense for them. But I think if you're looking at it's a clear like 1-2 in this draft, if Michael Misa is there and the numbers he put up this past year in Canadian Junior, you accommodate a guy like him in your lineup. If that means you're keeping Will Smith to the wing, or even Michael Misa was a wing, I think before this past year where he really exploded, wherever he's going to be a really impactful top 6 player. And yes, like San Jose does need to eventually address, talent on their blue line. But if Misa's there, I think you got to take him.
I sort of agree. I have a different pick though at number 2.
Oh yeah.
I think San Jose should go in a different direction. I like Misa, obviously, and I think he is. I would kill for the Bruins to have him. I think Porter Martone. Porter Martone is sort of this X factor in the top 7, 8 players, where some people have him at like 8, some people have him much higher, 2 or 3. I think like you mentioned like they drafted Celebrini. They drafted Smith the last 2 years. Seems to be your 1-2 down the middle. That's pretty good. Skill. Martone gives you some heft. Martone sort of is like that Corey Perry in the late 2000s, early 2010s Anaheim Ducks, where he complements the other guys in that roster so well. And I think Martone being a bigger guy, a playmaker, an offensive producer, I like Martone there. Now, do I think they actually do that? Probably not. But I think that's what they should do. And that's why, like, if I was San Jose, like, it's hard to pass up Martone there for what he can bring. And there are people who view him as a top 3 talent. And, again, if you get Misa, then, you mentioned Misa, I think used to be a wing or was a wing at one point.
He and originally was, I think, maybe his first or second year with the Spirit, but obviously he switched over to center this past year.
Yeah, and so like, do you go Misa on the left? Celebrini's not moving to the wing. Do you move Will Smith to the right wing? Like, obviously, it's a good problem to have, but Martone is so clearly a wing and a big guy. And to me, like, if I'm San Jose, that's a hard guy to pass up. So if I'm making a mock draft, I'll throw Martone in there too.
I do think that, like, I think Misa is better than Martone, but I think you do make a good point of like his skill set. He's such a unique player. And I think people, when they see a guy who's 6'3", scoring wing, they're like, oh, he's a Kachuk. I wouldn't really put him as that, but I agree. No. He's kind of like the Corey Perry, like can make space, can kind of muck things up a little bit, but he's not like I wouldn't really call him like a power forward, but like he can use his size to his strengths, especially in the offensive zone. And I think when you also look at San Jose, they've got obviously a lot of really good young skill up front, but they also don't have like big guys, right? That like he would be kind of a nice complement to what you have. You got Celebrini, who's just great in all 3 zones. You've got Will Smith, who's kind of a smaller player. Eklund's a smaller player. Like a 6'3" guy that could be your Corey Perry there in Martone would be a nice compliment. So I still think Misa is like the best player available, but you look at what Martone can bring as kind of another a different type of profile as a player. You'll take someone like that in your top 6 for sure, especially when he doesn't have to be like the guy. Like San Jose has so much skill up front that if Schaefer's not there, maybe you add like the type of player that, maybe Misa has a higher ceiling, but Martone could be the guy that in a couple of years, everyone's like, oh, I wish I had a player like that. I wish I had the Tom Wilson, the Brady Kachuk, those types of players. And there's a lot of value as to what those guys bring every single shift, even if it doesn't translate maybe to an 80-point season,
Absolutely. So number 3 pick is the Chicago Blackhawks. You so far have Schaefer and Misa going 1 and 2. Who do you have the Blackhawks taking in your mock draft?
I actually have them taking Martone. Because
Ooh, I
I
like
do
this.
think that that's a team that, they have some talent all across the board, but I think Martone is a guy that, again, when you do have some skill up front, he is a player that has that dynamic of being a power forward type. They've got a lot of skill, but not a lot of size, really, unless you're talking about some of these older players. And I think that someone like Martone could really bring a lot to that team. I also wouldn't be surprised if they're in the mix for some other scoring help this offseason. So maybe that changes things. Maybe if they're in the running for a guy like Mitch Marner, maybe they look more down the middle. But I'll go with a guy like Martone, who I'm really high on. I know that you've seen mock drafts where he's going 3. You've seen him in yours where he's going 2. You've seen some where he's like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
But he seems like for most years, he's been a consensus top 5 guy that's produced at the junior level, has size, can do a whole lot. And I think a team like Chicago could use a player like that.
And San Jose and Chicago are 2 teams that are not short on high-end centers. Obviously, Chicago has Bedard, and these are teams that have been drafting in the top 10 for feels like kind of a while now. And so it's like you can you can afford to take a big wing like this high if you already have a stockpile of high-end talent that you've drafted either at center or with the Blackhawks case on D a little bit. You mentioned something to me on Poke the Bear last week. And it was an interesting point you made when we were talking about Fluto's mock draft, where he had the Bruins trading Zacha and Murat Husseindinov to the Canucks for the 15th pick and Niles Hoglander. And we were both saying how we like that idea, 7 and 15 and everything. And you then made the point of, well, what if they packaged those and moved up? What if they packaged those and moved up? And so when I was putting this mock draft together, I was really like, I want to put 7 and 15 to get up to 3, especially in my mock draft where it's like,
I was going to say yours would be sorry.
But you're getting Misa.
Yeah.
Like that's what I would want to do that. But I can't bring myself to do it.
Yeah.
I can't bring myself to do it because I don't think there is such a massive difference between 3 and 7 that I would do that. And I think if it's, would you rather, like, I think the Bruins just need a good number of high-end prospects. I'm not 100% sure Michael Misa is a definite franchise center. Of the centers, he's the most likely to be. But to me, I'm not making that trade in this mock draft. I'm going to hold off. I'm going to be gun shy, which I don't like to do. But first of all, the trade for the 15th pick hasn't actually happened yet. So I'm basically like adding Fluto's mock draft to what my mock draft would be. That'd be kind of awkward. So I'm going to stay. I definitely think the Bruins would probably be calling Chicago about number 3 in my mock draft scenario where, I've had Schaefer and Martone go. I'll have Chicago taking Michael Misa. I think Chicago takes Michael Misa in my situation. Again, either a 2C behind Bedard or he's a 1C with Bedard on his right. It makes the most sense. It's the best player available in that scenario. They could definitely use a Martone. I think they would probably be hoping for a Martone to fall to them. That's why when people are like, oh, what if Martone's around for the Bruins at 7? I mean, we just went through 2 teams who could legitimately use him. So I'd be kind of surprised if he did get past Chicago and San Jose. That said, I don't know if he gets past, I think he probably might get past Nashville and Philly. If he does get past 2 and 3, I don't know. I think Nashville and Philly might be prioritizing center. So makes a lot of sense there. But for me, I'd have Michael Misa going to Chicago at number 3.
I do think that when we talk about trading up, I think you make a very compelling case. If you're able to get, you have 7, but let's say you do the trade with Vancouver and get 15. There's a lot to of sticking at 7, taking one of the many centers that I imagine we're going to say they're going to take, right? And I think whoever it may be, it's someone that helps your prospect pipeline, is a good player and should be able to, step into a role in the next couple of years. I think we all agree with that. They're going to get a really intriguing prospect. And I think at 15, you can get, a Jackson Smith, another defenseman who could be a top 4, starting caliber type of player, or it's like a wing, right? If it's Bear or, Victor Eklund, if he drops that far, there's a lot to like, the two prospects you can get there. I would only move up if I'm the Bruins and package those together if Misa falls to 3. And that's the only thing I would do because I love Michael Misa. I think Michael Misa is an awesome player. I think he can be like a 80-plus type player right away in a year or two. Can help you out on the bumper on the power play. He's so shifty. It reminds me, the guy I always mention with him is like he's a little bit of a bigger Braden Point.
Yep.
Like not the most dynamic player, but always puts himself in good spots, peppers the net in grade A ice. I love that player. So if there is a situation where the Islanders go for Hagens or something else changes, or, the San Jose goes for Martone or something like that, and Misa does drop to 3, I don't think he's going much further than that, then I would package those picks if I'm the Bruins, but I don't really see it happening. I can't see the Islanders going off the board, and I can't see the Sharks just turning aside what could be a really good player in Misa, even if someone else maybe makes some more sense there.
That's why, like, as I was walking home on last week, this week as we're recording, but last week from when you're listening, I was walking home and I was thinking about this, and I was like, I just don't see the Bruins doing it. Like, I'm not against it. I like the idea. I just don't know if I can bank on it, like, in my mock draft. That's what's tough. Like, I like it. I would want Misa. Like, if that's available, go for it. I just can't like hedge my mock draft. I can't have the headline be like, Evan has the Bruins taking Michael Misa, when for months I haven't been saying that. So
yes.
I'm going to hold off on that. I'm going to hold off, which is like, it hurts. I want to make it interesting like that. And maybe I should. God, I should change it, shouldn't I? No, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay with that.
Okay.
And number 4. So that would be the Utah. Man, I almost said Utah Hockey Club.
Whoa. I know. I still catch myself with it.
I've had at this point, I've had Schaefer go, I've had Martone go, and I've had Misa go to the Blackhawks at 3. At 4, I know you're going to present a really compelling case on your side. I'm going to say they stick with Anton Frondell. Next best available center, high upside, great shooter. You have guys like Keller and Cooley in the lineup. Frondell can provide sort of a one-timer on the power play, a lethal scorer when he ends up getting the NHL. I think they go that route. What about you? What do you think it for?
I think that the Brady Martin hype is out of control, and not saying that in a negative way. I just think that I think it just continues to soar higher and higher. I think he did himself a lot of favors at the combine. Apparently he's a great interview. Feels like a guy that even if maybe the ceiling isn't as high as some of these other guys that we've mentioned or will mention, it's not a big enough of a gap that I think people look at what like Sam Bennett is doing in the playoffs right now and how effective he is. Kind of the same thing with like Martone, right? Like maybe he's not going to have the same point totals as a Misa, but you friggin' notice him every time he hops over the boards, right? And I think Brady Martin's a guy that's going to go a lot higher than people think. And I think with Utah, with the fact that they already are a team that has a lot of talent down the middle, they've got Cooley, they've got Clayton Keller, they've got a lot of skill. I think they look at the fact they also kind of struck gold with this pick, thinking that, they're already on the right track, and then they get the 4th overall pick on top of it. I think they go for the guy that you can project as their 2C that's going to be a pain in the ass and be a key glue guy for this team moving forward. I'm going to go with Brady Martin at number 4 to Utah.
He makes sense. Like, you make the case for him, and it's an interesting one. And it's something you and I talked about last week, sort of just off camera, about how Utah could go in 2 different directions, right? They could go in the high floor category, which is Brady Martin, or they could go high ceiling with Roger McQueen.
Yeah.
Where they just, they're like, no, we're going to take a big swing, or we're going to get the guy who we think is a culture setting player, and we're going to take him at 4. So I love your idea with Brady Martin at 4. He actually does make sense for Utah.
And I think he's going to be a good player. Like, even I know a lot of people mock him to like the Bruins too. And I feel like if that was to happen, Bruins fans would be like, oh, they're reaching again. I really like the player. Like, again, I don't know if he's going to be more than a 2C, but like his first game in a year or two, he's going to be a pain in the ass. And he's going to be a fun player to root for. I think, again, if you're looking for, limiting risk with that pick, if you're looking at the next 3-4 years and you've got the Pasternaks, McAvoys, Swaymans, Martin's going to have his face planted on one of those little columns at North Station. He's going to be a likable player that I think is immediately going to be a key cog for this team if they do draft him. I really do like the play. Maybe I'm just buying into the hype, but I do think he's going to be a really effective pro at this next level.
I agree. My thing is just with the Bruins, you just need higher offensive upside. I love Brady Martin too. I can't say it enough. I also think if the Bruins did draft Brady Martin, fans who were against him would watch him put another prospect through the glass at development camp and be like, never mind, we love Brady Martin.
Yeah,
now.
it's. I think it's easy once you start watching the film too. The guy, and he's only 6 foot. He's only 6 foot. Not the most imposing guy, but you watch the tape, this guy is a menace when he's out there.
Completely.
He's even a guy that even maybe at his best, he's kind of like the Sam Bennett, where his 5-year career average is 49 points. Not what you're really looking for, but then you watch the tape and you're like, all right, this guy's making an impact every time he's out there. So he's kind of tough to gauge, but I really do like the player.
I do too. I can't get over the fit with the Bruins. But you have him going to Utah at 4. He is yet to go on my board. 5, Nashville. I have a feeling we may have the same pick here, but I'm gonna let you take this one.
I'm going off the board a little bit because I feel I went in with the same expectations, but I have a guy now that Brady Martin has kind of messed up the order a little bit. I'm going to go with a team that really struggled and is looking for, I think, immediate help right away. I think Nashville goes with Anton Frondell. Shot first guy, can play up front, is pretty close to finished product, right? He played overseas. That's kind of been the scouting report on him, is that he's probably the most pro ready. Again, is the ceiling the same as maybe some of these other players? Not sure, but he's a guy that I think can make an immediate impact. And I think if you're Nashville and you've got a lot of win now kind of guys on that team, you don't really have a next wave of players coming in where you're drafting a James Hagens or someone like that, where he's probably another 2 years away. Frondell could probably step in right away. And so I'm going to go with Anton Frondell at number 5 to Nashville. Bit off the board, but I think Martin's kind of throwing everything out of whack.
I don't think it's off the board for you because I think Frondell is high end. I had him going 3 to Chicago. Yeah. So I don't think that's off the board. You're right though. Martin throws a wrench in things. If Brady Martin goes
and Martone, right? If he goes top 5 too, those
guys open up options for you at 7 down later, which we're going to get to in a second. In my world, again, I've had Matthew Schaefer go. I've had Porter Martone, Michael Misa, Anton Frondell to Utah. I got James Hagens at 5 to Nashville, which
makes a lot of sense.
It makes sense. He's a high skill, high offensive ceiling, point getting kind of guy, a playmaker, someone who probably goes in a year. I'm going to assume he goes back to BC next year. And then in 25, 26 heads pro, if things go according to plan this year, which they should. I also do love the Hagens-Stiga route too. You do have Stiga there. They've been line mates forever. If Teddy Stiga does really well this year at BC, does he go with Hagens pro? I don't know. Maybe.
Good point.
So again, I'm not drafting Hagens because of Stiga. I'm drafting Hagens because he's a high-end offensive ceiling, all these kinds of guys. The Stiga part, though, is interesting and an important part of it too. Comfort in a new city, comfort in a new environment. Having one of your best friends there certainly matters. So I have Hagens going at 5 to Nashville. So now we've done the top 5, and they're different, which is fun. We're not agreeing on all the picks. We're not doing the exact same picks. We have different guys going in different spots, which is fun. So we'll get to pick 6 through 10, which feature your Boston Bruins, unless one of us had them trade down, which would be pretty crazy. Maybe we did. But first, our friends over at Prizepicks. Prizepicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. It's the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join millions of users and sign up today. One of those millions of people, me. During the Stanley Cup, I have been cooking with gas. Shots on goal, face-offs, time on ice. Bingo. Also, Draisaitl points. That's a hard one not to do, given how good he's been in this Stanley Cup. So go do that. Prizepicks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Don't forget Taco Tuesday and Flex Friday. Flex Friday, make sure you opt in and tap the checkbox in your lineup builder to be eligible for the protected play. Choose squares from any game on the board. If your lineup does not win, you get your net losses back in promo funds up to your promo limit as soon as the lineup settles. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. I like that we've added this. It's not just the fingers. We're like really working out here.
Yeah, it looks like I'm dabbing really quick, but no, I'm just running.
Prizepicks dab your game. That's what it is.
Yes.
They're gonna be like, we're never sponsored.
Yeah, we're done. Oh, well, it was a good run.
We're pulling
good run. Good run, right?
Thank you, Prizepicks. Okay, now we get into 6. And at number 6, we have the Philadelphia Flyers. And again, just a reminder, I have so far had Matthew Schaefer, Porter Martone, Michael Misa, Anton Frondell, and James Hagens. Philly needs a center, and in my world, they take the next best available. That's Caleb Desnoyers. I think Caleb Desnoyers goes to Philly. Two-way guy, makes sense for what they need. Checks a lot of boxes, can play in all 3 zones. Does have a little bit of an offensive upside, which is nice. The word on him is probably a 2C, but maybe a 1C. Especially with Mrtka there and the high-end skill that he brings. This kind of counterbalances that a little bit. So I have Desnoyers going at 6. What about you?
I have the same thing.
Bingo.
I think Philly's looking for talent down the middle. They're looking for
oh boy. Oh my God. I'm realizing what's happening here. Continue.
They got the physicality with Desnoyers. Got that little French-Canadian connection with Danny Briere. So I do think that's something where, yeah. You never know, man. I do think that's clear they're looking for talent down the middle. And so you got 1 or 2 options or 3. I mean, they also could look at a guy like Roger McQueen if they like that player, right? If they're confident that he's going to be healthy, Roger McQueen feels like a guy that could be a really good flyer as well, right? As a physical 6'3", 6'4" centerman as well. I think they go for the safest option there because they just need bodies. And I think Desnoyers is a guy that's really safe to project as, I think, a lock to be a 2C, but has that 1C potential as well. So a bit of a surprise, but I'm going with Desnoyers going to Philly.
I like where you're headed, and I am dying to hear because, again, for those following along, which I hope you are, you, Connor, have Matthew Schaefer going first, Michael Misa second, Porter Martone third, Brady Martin shaking things up and going 4, Frondell going to Nashville at 5, and Desnoyers at 6 to Philly. Who could you possibly have at number 7 for the Bruins?
Roger McQueen. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going with James Hagens.
You had me for a second.
Can you imagine if the Bruins have a chance to get James Hagens, which again, you need a lot going your way. You need Martone to go again, top 5. You need Brady Martin to jump up. You need 2 teams in Nashville and Philly to look at maybe safer options over just the skill of James Hagens. And there's, you're seeing some of that narrative now where it's almost like where you're hearing Brady Martin get talked to more and more of oh, he's a guy you can win with. You aren't hearing the same stuff with Hagens, and I don't agree with it. But I think you're seeing more of well, Hagens, he's not physical. He kind of is a perimeter guy. Can you win with that kind of player? I think he can, and I think if you're the Bruins and you've been so starved on high-end talent, especially down the middle, you go with the guy that was the consensus number 1 pick going into the year. A guy that, yes, he's dropped some, but oh man, he had a point per game season as an 18-year-old over at Hockey East. I think there's still so much to like about what James Hagens provides. I think I'm probably an outlier here in terms of whether he's still going to be there at 7. You've seen some mocks that have him, 5 or 6 or 7 around that range. Where I don't know if he's going to be a top 3 pick, maybe in the top 4 pick anymore. But in my one I have going here, I think he falls teams in front, maybe go for safer picks. And the Bruins have a guy that, even if maybe there's going to be some question marks, I guarantee you if the Bruins somehow get Hagens, it'll be us losing our minds and people being like, oh, I got another soft, kid. He's not going to do anything. It's what we've said, right? He's going to go back to BC and have a 55-point season. He's going to be a monster. And I think that he's a guy that if he's not Jack Hughes, then he's Clayton Keller. And he's a damn good player if you got a player like that added to your mix. I really like Hagens. And I got him going at number 7.
I love that pick. I would be
Again,
enthralled.
don't know how realistic it is. Like you're gonna need to pray to the hockey gods if you are a Hagens fan of what Nashville and Philly especially decide to do, because you can make the case that both of them could also use that high end talent, but I'm going more with like those teams. Like Philly needs a guy that maybe is more of a physical type player, and maybe more projectionable. And I think Nashville's in this weird spot, right, where it's not like you're adding a guy like Hagens who in 2 years is going to go to Nashville and he's part of like the mix with a lot of other young guys. They have no one. They're trying to win like right now. They put all their chips in. So I feel like Frondell or one of those guys, or even like Desnoyers, helps you out probably more in the immediate future than a guy like Hagens.
No doubt. No doubt. Number 7 to the Bruins, I have Jake O'Brien. I'll go the boring pick here. I think this is the most likely pick. My gut for this whole draft, and this is why I didn't have the Bruins trading up, is I think they make the 7th pick, and I think it's O'Brien. What's the biggest thing lacking in their prospect pool? It's centers and high-end skill and high-end playmaking, and O'Brien has those. O'Brien is not the best skater, not super physical. The shot isn't amazing, but he is a terrific playmaker, and he's a power play guy, and he has a high offensive ceiling, and I think they go with that. Given, again, I've had Schaefer go, Martone, Misa, Frondell, Hagens, Desnoyers. Not super insane. I think O'Brien's the next best available. I think he fits where you're trying to go. In terms of, building on the wing, like I think, if you build around O'Brien, you have scorers like Pasternak around him. I think you're going to get good results. I have Jake O'Brien going at number 7 to the Bruins. I think that's the most likely result to happen. I think I haven't seen the odds, but I'd assume O'Brien is at the top or near it. I would prefer Hagens, like in your situation, but given how I have the chips falling, I think they end up just taking O'Brien at number 7. So
I think makes a lot of sense. I think if you've got a much safer pick there, that I'm not saying that as if it's a bad thing. It's the most realistic option, I think, is a guy like Jake O'Brien, where if, Brady Martin isn't rising as high as we think, if teams like Nashville and Philly are really tempted by the potential of a guy like Hagens, understandably so, and take him, I think it makes the most sense that a guy like Jake O'Brien is probably the first guy you have there. Maybe it ends up being like Desnoyers drops or something like that, and that would be a really compelling argument as well. But O'Brien, I think, is going to be there at 7 for sure.
Yeah, no, I think he's the most realistic option, and I think he works. And it's not like Hagens it's like, oh my God, this is a guy who was potentially a number 1 pick. But O'Brien's been a long time top prospect too. Like, don't sleep on Jake O'Brien on this.
Yeah.
At number 8, Seattle Kraken.
Boo!
You're like, I have them picking nobody. They lose their first round pick for being so boring. They changed the trend here. Radim Mrtka, 6'6" right shot defenseman. They've been drafting a lot. They've drafted a lot of centers. They've been drafting a lot of forwards. They have Beniers. They have Shane Wright. I think they emphasize things on D, big, kind of two-way, strong in his own zone defender. I think they go Radim Mrtka here. What do you think?
I'm going to go with them, going with Roger McQueen, with the fact that if he is healthy, I think he has the potential to be a top 5 pick. And again, the Kraken have drafted a lot of centermen, right, over the years, whether it's Matty Beniers, Shane Wright, Berkeley Catton, right, was the last guy they drafted. But I think you're probably looking for upside there. And I think McQueen, if he is healthy and he does live up to his potential, has a chance of being like a breakthrough type of player for them that they so desperately need. Like, I think you've seen that, like, Shane Wright had a better year. I think Matty Beniers, I love the player, but maybe he's more of a high-end 2C. And I think if you're the Kraken at number 8 and you're trying to find like a guy that could be a top-line stalwart, I think probably McQueen is your best bet there of going, running that risk and that gamble if he is there at number 8. So I got McQueen going to Seattle.
I like that.
Sucks for him, but,
it does blow for him. Speaking of sucks for them, number 9, the Buffalo Sabers. That is a death sentence. That is a death sentence. Who do you have taking 9th to the Sabers?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can go a lot of different options because they got a lot to work on. You could look at D. You could look at like maybe one of those wings that go off the board, right? Like maybe Eklund could go there. Bear, if he's healthy, he's a guy that I think could fit in. Where I feel like Bear's a type of player that is kind of like Martin, where maybe he is like your second line left wing, but he's a pain in the ass to play against. He's physical, always at the net front, and maybe that kind of intense, forechecking presence of what a team like the Sabers need. Like I almost wonder if Brady Martin doesn't drop, he would make a lot of sense for a team like Buffalo, right? Where maybe he's not the highest ceiling, but he's a menace out there and is a tone setting type of player. I'm going to go with Jake O'Brien, though. I think he probably still has the highest upside. They still are always going to need center help because they're going to eventually trade like Tage Thompson, these guys in a couple years anyway. So there's a lot of different ways they can go. But if Brady Martin's not there and he doesn't either shoot higher up the draft or the Bruins don't want to take him, I think that Jake O'Brien makes the most sense. It's probably the highest upside left on the board for a team like Buffalo that just needs skill and talent wherever they can get it.
You took the words out of my mouth. Brady Martin to the Sabres at 9. I don't know how
Yeah.
Brady Martin gets past this. I mean, they could.
No,
the Sabres
I don't think he does.
The Sabres are dumb and they make some
Yes.
stupid decisions, and this could easily be one of them. But Martin is, they have the Sabres have high end prospects and high end guys on their roster. This is a culture setter. This is a guy who can come in and be a leader. This is a guy who can come in and be a pain in the ass to play against in the Atlantic. So you're going up against the Floridas, the Tampas, the Bostons, the Torontos. Martin makes so much sense. This is the thing they are lacking. Sort of how we talk about Sam Bennett, and that people are kind of making all these Sam Bennett, Brady Martin comparisons, but we talk about Sam Bennett in terms of like, I don't think the Bruins should go get him because they're not one piece away. And I'm not saying the Sabres are one piece away, but you need to go after what you don't have. And what the Sabres don't have is a guy like Brady Martin, is that kind of edge and tenacity. So I have Brady Martin going at number 9. And then to round things out at number 10, the Anaheim Ducks, I have Roger McQueen going. I think that's where he goes. They obviously have a lot of high-end talent, a lot of high-end picks in the past, but McQueen, sort of what you said with Seattle, where it's like you have this upside, and they have so many prospects, they can afford to miss on this. They can afford to miss on McQueen. Boston can't. Philadelphia can't. A lot of the teams ahead of them can't. So I have McQueen going at 10 to Anaheim. I'm curious who you have Anaheim taking.
Yeah, I have them going with Mrtka, the right shot D. Big body, dynamic type of player. And I think, as you said, they've got a lot of skill up front. They've got other younger players either that have more to give and more to grow and develop at the NHL level or on the way in their prospect pipeline. I think they're really missing probably a top pairing right shot D. And I think Mrtka kind of fits the bill there. So they seem like they're already on the right track. They took a big step forward this past year. They've got, Quenneville is now their coach, and I think they're expected to take another step forward moving forward. And I think if you look at just the amount of options they have up front, it makes sense that they can turn now to the D core and have a guy that could be a really key piece of the puzzle moving forward. I also think that Anaheim's going to be a player in free agency as well, especially up front. So I'm not surprised they look at their D, I think, with the number 10 pick.
I could absolutely see it. So to round things out, we're only doing the top 10 because this is the Bruins podcast and we are just focusing on that. But maybe if Ludo's thing comes true and they get the 15th pick, maybe we'll be like, let's also project the 10 through 20 as well. You had Matthew Schaefer to the Islanders, Michael Misa to the Sharks. You had Porter Martone to the Blackhawks. You had Brady Martin to Utah. You had Anton Frondell to Nashville at 5. You had Caleb Desnoyers to Philly at 6. You had James Hagens going to the Bruins at 7, taking a page out of my playbook. You had
Jimmy Hagens.
Jimmy Hagens finally there. You have Seattle taking Roger McQueen. You had who did you have at 9?
Jake O'Brien to Buffalo.
Jake O'Brien to 9 to Buffalo at 9, and then you had Radim Mrtka to Anaheim at 10. And then to run through mine, Islanders take Schaefer, Sharks take Porter Martone, Blackhawks take Michael Misa, and the Bruins frantically call them like crazy, like please, please, please.
Yes.
Number 4, I had Utah taking Anton Frondell, Nashville taking James Hagens at 5, Philly taking Caleb Desnoyers at 6. Jake O'Brien goes to the Bruins at 7 in my world. Radim Mrtka goes to Seattle at 8. Brady Martin goes to Buffalo at 9. Poor Brady, man. Chance to go to Boston and just misses and goes to Buffalo in my world. That poor kid. He deserves better. And then Anaheim takes a big swing at number 10 with Roger McQueen. So those are our mock drafts. Maybe they change. Maybe more information comes out. We see different things and we say, all right, let's change it. Or maybe I wake up one morning and say, you know what? The Bruins should trade for a higher pick. And bada bing, bada boom, we have a new mock draft. But that's how we're feeling at the moment. Conor, what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, you can read me over the Globe and Boston.com. You've covered every step of the way this Bruins off season, whether it's the draft, free agency, trades, offer sheets, all that good stuff. You can read all of it over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. If you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all of that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.